Imagine touching the football just 20 times in a full 90-minute game, completing a grand total of 4 passes, and still being the absolute most terrifying player on a World Cup pitch.
Sounds impossible, honestly.
Right. But today, we are unpacking a day of international football where the standard data completely failed to tell the whole story. So welcome to this custom-tailored deep dive.
We've got a lot of ground to cover.
We really do. Our mission today is to take the stack of sources you provided. So that's match reports from FIFA and The Guardian, tactical breakdowns from SofaScore, refereeing analysis from Y-Scores, emotional human interest pieces from Men's XP and Al Jazeera, fan reactions from Boston 25 News, and historical context from Wikipedia and Football 360.
It's a really comprehensive stack.
Yeah, and we're going to use all of it to truly understand the opening matches of the 2026 FIFA World Cup Group 1. Because we aren't just reading the box scores today, we're looking at a 40-year drought ending, an all-time goal-scoring record shattering, a massive milestone for Pakistani heritage achieved via an Instagram DM.
Which is just wild to think about.
So wild. And of course, the devastating World Cup debut of Erling Haaland.
Yeah, I mean, we are looking at a slate of games that, on paper at least, they read as pretty routine. You have France 3, Senegal 1, and Norway 4, Iraq 1.
Very standard score lines for those teams.
Right. But beneath those numbers is a fascinating collision. We're essentially witnessing these hyper-optimized tactical machines going up against pure, unadulterated human resilience.
Exactly. So to really grasp the mechanics of what happened on the pitch, let's start by looking at how France dismantled Senegal at MetLife Stadium. You really can't watch these two nations play without the ghost of 2002 hanging over the stadium, right?
Oh, absolutely not. That 2002 match, I mean, it is etched into football history. Senegal, making their World Cup debut, actually defeated the defending champions, France, 1-0 in the opening match.
Which is still one of the greatest upsets the sport has ever seen.
Exactly. So the psychological pressure on this current French squad to avoid a repeat of that humiliation, it's immense because they are expected to win the whole tournament.
And the narrative tension was thick, especially in that first half. Because Senegal didn't just sit back, Nicholas Jackson actually hit the post for them early on.
Yeah, they were fearless.
They really were. They deployed this very aggressive high press, clearly trying to replicate that 2002 magic by suffocating the French midfield.
Senegal's tactical approach was brave. I'll give them that. But this is where we have to look at the tactical evolution of France, specifically through Michael Elise.
Who ended up taking home man of the match.
He did. And the SofaScore heat maps you included in your sources show us exactly why. Because when Senegal pressed high, Elise didn't panic. He began dropping deep into the half spaces.
Just to clarify for everyone, those are the little pockets of grass between the wing and the center of the pitch.
Right, exactly. And by dragging a Senegalese defender with him into those pockets, he created massive passing lanes.
It totally unpicked the lock. So then in the 66th minute, the dam breaks. Elise receives the ball in that pocket of space, turns, and delivers this beautifully weighted pass, and Kylian Mbappe just finishes it with a low first-time shot.
France breathes a massive sigh of relief at that point.
Yeah, for sure. And then later, substitute Bradley Barcola chips the Senegalese keeper, Edouard Mendy, in the 82nd minute to make it 2-0.
But even then, Senegal's Ibrahim Abaye pulls one back in the 95th minute from a ridiculously tight angle.
Which threatened a really frantic final minute, but Mbappe just coldly shuts the door. 60 seconds later, he fires a right-footed shot from 30 yards out to seal the 3-1 victory.
Which is just unbelievable composure.
Right. And Mbappe laying down a marker with a brace, meaning he scored 2 goals in the match, is significant enough. But that 96th minute strike was his 58th goal for the French national team.
Which is a huge milestone.
Massive. He officially bypassed all the legends to become France's all-time leading scorer. But, how does a player adjust tactically late in a game, carrying that kind of historical weight, to find the space for a 30-yard dagger?
Well, it really comes down to exploiting transition moments. When Mbaye scored for Senegal, their entire team pushed forward off the restart, basically abandoning their defensive shape to chase an equalizer.
Because they had nothing to lose at that point.
Exactly. And Mbappe recognized the structural chaos. Instead of playing as a traditional center forward, he drifts out wide to the left, isolating a tired defender one-on-one.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, he uses his pace to create just a yard of separation, cuts inside, and unleashes the shot. It's really a testament to his elite spatial awareness.
It really is. I do want to bring up something you'll notice reading through the BBC reports in your stack, though, because there was a major controversy in the second half.
Oh, the penalty shout?
Yeah. Sadio Mane appeared to catch Mbappe inside the box, but no penalty was given, even after a VAR review. The BBC called it a decision that dumbfounded the world's best refs.
Which is strong wording.
It is. What is the actual mechanism in the VAR room that leads to a non-call there?
So the mechanism hinges entirely on the phrase, clear and obvious error. When evaluating subjective contact, like a tackle where two players tangle legs, the VAR room is highly reluctant to overrule the referee on the pitch.
Right, unless the ref completely hallucinated the event.
Exactly. It's very different from offside calls, which are spatial and geometric. An offside is determined by plotting points and drawing lines on the broadcast frame, so it's objective.
You're either offside or you aren't.
Right. But contact in the box requires interpreting intent and force. So early in this tournament, the protocol seems to prioritize the flow of the game over re-refereeing every subjective clash.
Okay, that makes sense. So Mbappe proved what a traditional, heavily involved, ball-dominant superstar looks like. But if we pivot to the data from Norway's 4-1 victory over Iraq in Boston...
This is such a fascinating contrast.
It really is. Erling Haaland proved you can completely dominate a World Cup match while essentially being a ghost for 89 minutes. This was Norway's first World Cup appearance in a 28-year wait, and their tactical setup was just mesmerizing.
Staggering contrast. Looking at the SofaScore numbers you provided, Norway held 61% possession and completed 536 passes to Iraq's 333.
Wow.
Yeah, they built their attacks methodically. The first goal is a prime example. It was a 14-pass sequence starting all the way back with their 35-year-old goalkeeper, Arjen Nyland.
Drawing the Iraqi press out. Right?
Exactly. And then it ends with a cross from David Miller-Wolf to Haaland.
And that's where those mind-bending statistics come in. Because Haaland only had 20 touches the entire game. He completed 4 passes.
Yandle's comical.
Right. Yet he scored twice, had 4 shots on target, and generated 1.85 expected goals.
Let's quickly define expected goals for anyone who might need a refresher.
Sure. Expected goals, or XG, is a metric that calculates the statistical probability of a player scoring from a specific location based on historical shot data.
So historically, an average player would have scored nearly 2 goals from the positions Haaland found himself in.
Right. He earned an 8.2 match rating while barely touching the ball.
Because he weaponizes his absence. He doesn't drop deep to help his team pass the ball because he completely trusts the Norwegian midfield to do that work. His sole purpose is the final lethal action.
I was thinking about this, and he's basically a cinematic shark, like in the movie Jaws.
Oh, that's a great comparison.
You don't actually see the shark for most of the movie. It's just water, tension, and anticipation. But that analogy only describes what he does, not how he does it. How does a team even begin to physically defend against a player who completely ignores the build-up play?
Let's look at the biomechanics of defending to understand the Jaws effect. Usually, a center back defends a player by tracking their involvement with the ball. But Haaland purposefully stations himself in the defender's literal physical blind spot.
Wait, like physically behind them?
Yeah. Because of human anatomy, the defender has to constantly turn their neck to look at the ball and then turn their neck back to look at Haaland.
They can't look at both at the same time.
Precisely. And in that exact fraction of a second where the defender's head is turned toward the midfielder making the pass, Haaland moves.
Oh, wow.
That's the mechanism of his invisibility. By the time the defender turns his head back, Haaland is already 3 steps ahead, attacking the space.
And if the defender decides to just stare at Haaland to prevent that?
Then they leave a massive passing lane open for someone like Martin Ødegaard to exploit. It's a tactical nightmare.
That is terrifying. But, you know, while Haaland's clinical, almost robotic efficiency defined Norway's attack, the sources from the Iraqi perspective highlight a completely different reality.
A much more emotional one.
Absolutely. Iraq's moments of brilliance were fueled by something immeasurable, pure human resilience.
Yeah, the underlying numbers completely fail to tell the story of what happened in the 39th minute. Norway's up 1-0. Amir El Amari chips across into the box, and Ayman Hussein, Iraq's 30-year-old captain, out-jumps the entire Norwegian defense to plant a header past the keeper.
It's Iraq's first World Cup goal in 40 years. And when you read the deeply moving profile on Hussein from Men's XP that you included in the sources, the psychological weight of that header is just overwhelming.
It really is.
Because Hussein grew up in a war zone in Iraq's Al-Hawija district. When he was 12 years old, his father, who was an Iraqi soldier, was killed by al-Qaeda.
His story involves unimaginable grief. A few years later, his brother, who was also in the military, was kidnapped by ISIS and disappeared.
God, that's just...
Yeah. Hussein was shattered. He wanted to quit football entirely. It was his mother who pushed him to continue playing, essentially using the sport as a survival mechanism.
And even just the logistics of arriving at this World Cup were traumatic for him. The sources mention he was detained for 7 hours at a Chicago airport just trying to enter the United States.
Right, so keeping that context in mind completely changes how you view the match. That goal isn't just a point on a scoreboard. It's a profound act of defiance.
You could see the emotional release on the sideline, too. Australian coach Graham Arnold, who manages Iraq, was celebrating wildly with his assistants.
It felt like an echo of his 2022 World Cup run with the Socceroos, where they lost their first game 4-1 but still managed to advance.
Yeah, it was a transcendent moment for the team and the country, but international football is uniquely ruthless, isn't it?
Very. The reality check came almost immediately. Barely 3 minutes after that emotional high, a catastrophic tactical error completely shifted the momentum before halftime.
Let's break down that error. Jalal Hassan, the Iraqi goalkeeper, hesitated on a back pass. Now, Hassan is vastly experienced with over 100 caps, just being the traditional term for international appearances.
Right.
But he takes a heavy touch. Holland immediately pounces on the rebound and scores his second goal. The air just went out of the balloon.
It perfectly illustrates the razor-thin margins at this level.
Mm-hmm.
You can have all the narrative weight and emotional momentum in the world, but a single moment of technical hesitation against a player who understands spatial pressure, like Holland.
Is instantly punished.
Exactly.
So Hussein's goal briefly lifted the spirits of an entire nation, but an Iraqi substitution in the 59th minute ended up making history for a country over 1,000 miles east of Baghdad.
This is one of my favorite details from the sources.
It's so cool. And the mechanism of how this player even got on the pitch is mind-blowing.
The Al Jazeera source details this brilliantly. In the 59th minute, a 23-year-old midfielder named Zidane Iqbal steps onto the pitch, becoming the first player of Pakistani heritage to ever play in a World Cup.
Which is historic in itself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Iqbal was born in Manchester to a Pakistani father and an Iraqi mother, and he spent 12 years grinding through the Manchester United Academy.
But what's incredible is how the Iraq Football Association discovered him, because it wasn't through traditional scouting networks.
So-
They found him through a large Iraqi fan page on Instagram that actively tracks diaspora players.
It sounds chaotic. But let's break down the actual mechanism of this modern scouting pipeline. The Instagram page acts as crowdsourced intelligence.
Right.
They send a direct message to the FA. But it's not a blind invite. The FA takes that tip-off, pulls Iqbal's academy footage into professional video analysis software like Wisecout, cross-references his passport eligibility, and only then do they set up a formal remote video interview with him and his parents.
It bridges a massive systemic gap because, as your sources note, Pakistan is ranked 198th in the world. Their football federation lacks a technical director, and they lack dedicated recruitment staff.
Right, the infrastructure just isn't there.
So a talent like Iqbal, who now plays in the Dutch top flight for FC Utrecht, realistically had to choose Iraq if he ever wanted to play on the global stage.
It was his only viable path to a World Cup.
But I have to ask, if an international FA is relying on Instagram algorithms to source their talent pool, does this mean traditional scouting in the stands is dead?
I wouldn't say traditional scouting is dead, but it is deeply unequal. Elite nations like France have networks tracking every child kicking a ball from age 6.
Right, massive budgets.
Exactly. Developing football nations simply don't have the budget to fly scouts out to Manchester on a rumor. Social media democratizes that access. It allows a passionate fan with a smartphone to do the initial legwork of a global scouting network, feeding data to the FA for verification.
It is wild to think about a World Cup roster spot beginning with a DM.
It really is.
But, while technology like Instagram successfully brought Iqbal to the world stage, the highly funded technology actually meant to govern the game on the pitch. VAR left a lot of people scratching their heads in this match, too.
Yes, this brings us back to the controversial refereeing decisions. In the 76th minute, Martin Ødegaard whips in a corner, and Norway's Leo Østigard heads it in for their third goal.
But the controversy stems from the biomechanics of what happened right before the header.
Exactly.
Looking at the referee analysis from Y-Scores, former Egyptian international referee Gamal Al-Gandour highlighted a serious suspicion of invalidity regarding this goal. He pointed out that Holland used excessive force to push an Iraqi defender out of the way inside the box just before the ball reached Østigard.
And the VAR room, led by Saudi referee Abdullah Al-Shari, did not intervene.
Which feels like a recurring theme.
It does. Al-Ghandor's analysis is fascinating because it focuses on the mechanics of a jump. If an attacker puts two hands on a defender's back while the defender is attempting to load their leg muscles to jump, even a slight push completely destroys the defender's upward trajectory.
Because they can't leave the ground.
Right. Al-Ghandor argued this wasn't mutual holding. It was a unilateral push that prevented the defender from challenging for the ball. Yet, VAR stayed silent, again reinforcing that subjective physical battles in the box are being left entirely to the on-field referee's discretion.
So if we pull back and look at what all of this means for Group I moving forward, the math is pretty straightforward. Norway sits at the top with 3 points and a +3 goal differential. France is right behind them in second with a +2 differential.
And Senegal is third, with Iraq at the bottom.
But Coach Graham Arnold's post-match optimism is structurally justified, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. In this newly expanded World Cup format, 8 of the 12 third-place teams will advance to the knockout stages.
Oh, right. So Iraq isn't out of it at all.
Not at all. Iraq might only need one narrow win against France or Senegal, combined with a decent goal difference, to survive the group stage.
To summarize the incredible duality of the sources you've given us today, we are watching the hyper-optimized statistical dominance of European powerhouses like France and Norway actively colliding with the chaotic, emotional, and deeply personal realities of teams like Senegal and Iraq.
And understanding those underlying mechanisms completely transforms how you watch this tournament. When you see a 3-1 or 4-1 scoreline on your screen, it looks like a routine victory for the favorites.
Just business as usual.
Exactly. But when you know that those numbers represent Mbappe shifting his spatial awareness to break an all-time record, or Ayman Hussein channeling unimaginable family grief to score a historic header, or Zidane Iqbal carrying the pride of a nation ranked 198th in the world, the game stops being just math.
It really does. And I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over as you watch the rest of this World Cup. Consider the vast contrast in how these men reach the exact same patch of grass.
It's fascinating to think about.
You have Norway executing a flawless 14-pass sequence to feed a striker who was meticulously bred in elite European academies. And sharing that exact same field is a player who used football to survive the trauma of a war zone, and a player who was crowdsourced onto the global stage via a social media app.
Worlds colliding.
In an increasingly data-driven, hyper-analyzed sport is the true magic of the World Cup, that it forces the perfectly engineered football machine to collide with the messy, unpredictable reality of the human experience. Next time you look at that box score, remember, the numbers never show the whole picture.